So good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We're on day 4. And we thank you again, those that have joined us for the first time today, or for those that have been with us all week. It's much appreciated, your support for these events. And we look forward to welcoming you to the actual show on the 19th of March. We didn't want to let January go unnoted. Hence we brought together some of our exhibitors to give you to whet your appetite ahead of the main event. So today we have with us some of the lovely tourism businesses from 1066 country, and we're really excited to hear what they have to set today. Just in terms of housekeeping, for those that haven't been on one of these before, you're all doing it very nicely. We just ask you to be on mute whilst the presentations are going on. There is a chat button at the bottom of your screen. If you want to ask any questions, then you are more than welcome to type them in the chat, and then we can look at them at the end. Or also at the end, you will be invited to ask any questions to any of the presenters. So you can either wave your hands and we'll let you speak, or write them in the side if you're not so comfortable to speak. And the session is being recorded, as you will have heard, and it will be available afterwards and then hosted on the Excursions website for 12 months, so you can revisit it at any time. We would appreciate it if you could share it with your colleagues and friends as well, and I encourage them to have a cuppa and listen to all the things that there are to do. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Jane Ellis, and she can start the exploration.
Thank you, Fran. I'm going to share my screen, and fingers crossed this all works. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for inviting us into your front rooms today for your groups. Hopefully we're going to be able to show you some of our hidden and not so hidden gems. We're delighted to have this opportunity to showcase what a wonderful place 1066 country is. Many thanks to Elaine and Fran and Karen at Tourism Southeast for organising this session for us. Today I'd like to give you a quick snapshot of our fabulous visitor destination. If you like what you see and hear, please visit our website, which you can see on screen there, to delve deeper and find inspiration for your group visits. So I'm joined today by a lovely bunch of folk. There you can see them all listed, and the variety of our lineup reflects a little how varied the offer is that we have for visitors here in 1066 country. So where exactly are we? Well, you'll see we're tucked away in the southeast corner of the country, in between Sussex, in between Eastbourne and Folkestone, roughly. We're very accessible for near Europe sorry, I'm just hiding something there. We're very accessible for near Europe as well, because arriving by ferry into Dover, it's about an hour's drive into, and then you reach Rye. So that's where you actually arrive into 1066 country from the east. From the west, it's the A27 and the A259. Gatwick Airport as well, you can see there is very good road links and also rail links down into 1066 country. If you need to get around London, you've got the M25 to help you, or not sometimes, and then the A21 down into 1066 country, or the M20, which I've actually just forgotten to colour in, which would lead you to the A259, which then brings you in from the east. This is more or less exactly the same information that I've just given you here, but to give you an idea of the time scales, London by direct rail is about an hour and just over an hour and a quarter into 1066 country, an hour and 8 minutes to Rye, an hour and a quarter to Battle, and about an hour and 40 minutes to Hastings, and the same from Gatwick Airport. From Dover, it's approximately an hour by road, and then from Ashford International, 40 minutes by train and by road. So we're easy to get around. We're a small patch of land, which is approximately about 31 miles across, about 50 kilometers across, west to east. And here are the towns. We have Camber right over in the east, Camber Sands, Then next to that you have Rye, the smallest town in England, which is Winchelsea, just next door to Rye. Going inland, you have Bodiam. Battle is the centre of 1066 country, where the Battle of Hastings took place. Over here to the west, we have Hurstman Zoo, Pevensey and Pevensey Bay, Bexhill, and finally Hastings. This is an illustrated map which we're actually currently updating, which shows you just a few in pictorial form of the visitor attractions that we have. We have over 70 visitor attractions in the area. And if we start along the coast, starting at Pevensey down here in the west, Pevensey is the landing place of William the Conqueror. So you have Pevensey Castle, which is an English heritage property, the Courthouse Museum and Jail. And nearby, you'll be hearing from Lindsay later, you have Mickleham Priory, which isn't very far. It's very handy if you are actually in Eastbourne to visit Mickleham Priory, and then this area of 1066 country. Moving along the coast, you come to Bexhill. This is the birthplace of British motor racing, and you can find out more about that at Bexhill Museum and other things, and you'll be hearing from Julian later on as to the delights of Bexhill Museum. The Delaware Pavilion is the nationally and internationally recognised arts centre, and a really beautiful and elegant peaceful seafront. Bexhill is also the kind of centre point for the Coastal Culture Trail, which links the three galleries, Hastings Contemporary in Hastings Old Town, the Delaware Pavilion, and then the Towner Gallery in Eastbourne. So if you're interested in art, for visiting art galleries, then definitely this is something you should consider. Then we move further along to the east to Hastings, a seaside resort with a difference. We have all the fun of the fair there, but there is also the very picturesque old town, Two Cliff Railways, the fishing fleet, many visitor attractions, galleries, museums, many of which are free. We have Rebecca here today from one of Hastings' newest attractions, which is the British Tea Museum. And then you can be down on the beach 1 minute, and then you can take the lift up to the Hastings Country Park. So you have coast and countryside. A new visitor centre opened at Hastings Country Park last year. And then finally along the coast to Rye, the best preserved medieval town in England. You start your visit, I would recommend, at the Rye Heritage Centre. Lamb House is the home of Henry James, the former home of Henry James. Rye Museum, again a fishing fleet as well at Rye. The scallops are just about coming into season now. And Rye Harbour Nature Reserve, just on the coast here. And their Discovery Centre, their new Discovery Centre, opened to great acclaim last summer. Just on the very edge of 1066 country, we have Camber Sands. So 7 miles of sandy beach and dune systems, water sports, e-bike hire, anything active. Then going rural, going inland, lying inland, surrounded by the stunning Sussex countryside of the High Weald area of outstanding natural beauty, you have gardens and vineyards and castles set amongst the rolling hills, or also down on the Pevensey levels down here. We have, starting with Winchelsea, the smallest town in England that I've just mentioned before, St. Thomas the Martyr Church. Spike Milligan is buried in the graveyard there with his epitaph, "I told you I was ill." It's a very beautiful town. They run every summer, they run the medieval cellar tours, and handily, just close by to Winchelsea, there is Charles Palmer Vineyard, which was also the location for Lord Snowdon's family home in The Crown and Sherlock's house in the film Mr. Holmes with Sir Ian McKellen. And Winchelsea Court Hall Museum, which will tell you the story of this fascinating little town. Further inland, we have Bodiam. This has not just got the Bodiam Castle, for which it's very famous. That is also National Trust property. There is also Bodiam Boating Station, and you can take river cruises along the river to Bodiam Boating Station. The Kent and East Sussex Railway comes down from Tenterden, moves through Northiam and ends in Bodiam. And they offer cream teas, fish and chip suppers, all sorts of things that is ideal for groups. Also, Great Dixter House and Gardens is very close to these other three attractions. Nearby, crossing over the A21, we come to the area here of the gardens. Pashley Manor, who you will hear from Kate in a minute, Merriman's and King John's Gardens and Nursery are three of the gardens in this area. There is also Bateman's, the former home of Rudyard Kipling. And then further to the north, just up here, up at the A21, we have Buell Water, which isn't on this map, but will be on this year's. And then over here, we have Bedgebury, National Pine-Eaton Forest. And you'll hear from Emma, straight after me. Then we moved down to Battle, the centre of 1066 country, which is obviously why we call it that name, because of the Battle of Hastings, which is where it took place. Battle Abbey has got a fabulous visitor centre, English heritage again, Battle Museum at the other end of the very pretty high street with plenty of independent shops and eateries, and St Mary the Virgin Church as well. Then finally over to Hurstman Zoo, where we have the home of the Sussex Trug for all you gardeners. Hurstman Zoo Castle Estate actually broadcast about a month ago from Gardeners Question Time, a broadcast from Hurstman Zoo Castle Estate, and really it is the gardens here that shouldn't be missed. Observatory Science Centre is right next door, and this is where the Royal Observatory relocated from Greenwich to Hurstman Zoo, and here they run stargazing evenings, one of which is coming up this weekend actually. So for those with an interest in astronomy, this is a must not miss place. We're in the process of updating this map, as I've said, and we have now 6 vineyards. Sussex is probably one of the most prolific producers of sparkling wine now in the country, and we have 6 vineyards now just in this small area here, offering tours and tastings. We also have links with a company called Vine and Country Tours, who would take you on a tour of 2 or 3 vineyards with lunch included. Now, coming nearly to the end, there's a list of some of the things that I've already mentioned, but our towns are also full of independent shops and places to eat. The local produce is used as widely as possible: fresh and smoked fish, scallops, Romney Marsh lambs, Sussex cheeses, wines, craft beers, fruit juices. And in addition to the events and performances held by our attractions, the towns offer a range of really popular events, most of which actually did take place last year as well, ranging from Hastings Seafood and Wine Festival, Rye Jazz and Blues Festival, Hastings Jack in the Green, the reenactment of the Battle of Hastings, and a new event for this year, which actually is coming up this weekend as well, which is Bexhill After Dark. And this is hopefully going to be an annual event. We all know how to have fun in 1066 country. So I will just move on to the final slide now. Our contact details are all there, our social media accounts as well. Before I hand over to the rest of the gang, starting with Emma from Bedgebury National Pine-Eaton Forest, I'd love to show you a short film which will bring to life some of what I've presented to you. And hopefully we'll see you again at Excursions on March the 19th. Thank you. Have I stopped sharing? I don't know if I have. Yeah.
If you want to be one of the only people in the world whose
Fabulous adverts. Sorry. Okay, thank you very much, Jane. That's lovely. I think Emma is next.
Hello. I'll just start sharing. Okay. Can you see my screen okay?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to introduce you to Bedgebury National Pine-Eaton and Forest. And as you can see here, Bedgebury's trees are the key to its beauty and the reason to visit. So where is Bedgebury? We're on the edge of 1066 country, as Jane just said, just to the north of East Sussex. Bedgebury's technically in Kent. Our Flimwell corner is in the East Sussex boundary. So we are quite unique. We are the National Pine-Eaton and National Conifer Collection, but we're also bordered by a working forest. And as Jane just described, we're very close to London. For us, it's just over an hour, and our nearest train station is Tunbridge Wells. But most people arrive at Bedgebury by vehicle, and we have car admission and also minibuses and coaches coming along. We're also near to lots of other botanic collections, including the gardens that Jane mentioned, but also Kew, Wakehurst Place, Sissinghurst Gardens, and the attractions like Bodiam Castle down to the seaside at Hastings. Other forests nearby include Wendover Woods in the Chilterns, Alice Holt in Surrey, Jeskins Community Woodlands in Kent, but also in East Sussex, Friston on the coast, and Great Battle Wood, which is surrounds the Battle Abbey and the English heritage property there. So Bedgebury is 2,000 acres in all, and for scale, that's around 1,500 football pitches or 800 rugby pitches. It's two very different elements to it. You can see the National Pine-Eaton, the internationally significant botanic collection, is surrounded by a working forest, and you can see the cycle trails there. So the National Pine-Eaton here shows the temperate collection of trees that we have in the hills of the High Weald, area of outstanding natural beauty. So I'll share some history about the National Pine-Eaton and then what you can enjoy in them and the forest. So the history of Bedgebury goes back all the way to 814 AD. It's passed through many private families' hands before it became a Forestry England forest and Pine-Eaton, and everybody seems to have left their mark. We've had many famous visitors, including Henry VIII, Thomas Cromwell, Elizabeth I. More recently, the Don family. I'll show you a couple of the landmarks that we've got still in the National Pine-Eaton and their connections. So Marshal Viscount Beresford is one of the families involved at Bedgebury, and he's left his name on Marshall's Lake. And this is one of the iconic places of Bedgebury on the northern border. It's grade 2 listed, and you can see the swamp cypresses and the dawn redwoods that create a stunning autumnal display around the lake here. Another place is Lady Mildred's carriage drive in the Pine-Eaton. The trees here are the Lawson cypress planted back from 1854. And this avenue is absolutely beautiful, and on a winter's day provides cover, on a summer's day provides shade from the sun there. So still very popular. During the 1900s, you can see that the transfer of ownership led to a partnership with Kew Gardens, who were looking for a new country .
Well, we seem to have lost your voice. Is anybody else?
For their conifer collection, and detailed in the notes, and the public should be discouraged. Things have changed. Sorry, it might be my connection. Can you hear? Can you still hear me, or is
You're cutting in and out.
okay?
We can hear you
I can
again
keep
now.
going, but if okay,
Let's keep going,
that's
and if it
very
gets
odd.
worse, we'll perhaps turn your you can't turn your camera off. Well, you probably can turn your camera off actually, and then present. Emma, try turning your camera off. It might just help with your internet connection.
Okay.
Yeah, and then share.
Can you hear?
We
You
still
can hear me
you.
though, can you?
Yeah.
Okay. Is that better in terms of audio?
Yes, think so. Keep talking and we'll tell you.
Right. Okay. Okay. So what remains is the taxonomic planting as well. So you can see the similar trees here, but it's not just the people that have had is the internet connection going funny again?
It's in and out.
Can you hear me okay?
Shall we move to Ronan and then we'll come back to you perhaps and try again.
And Julian.
Julian, sorry. Julian, are you
okay?
We're happy to move on, Emma, and we'll come back to you to see if the internet connection fixes itself. If I stop your share. Julian, are you happy?
Sure, okay.
Yeah, let me just see if I can get this to work. Can you see this okay? Can you hear me?
Not yet. Can't see you, not sharing.
Okay, let me try again. Is that it?
No, bear with me. I'll bring it up. Bear with me. I can share for you if you'd like. Bear with me 1 second. Right, if we do a Quiz Witty style, okay? Okay. Julian?
Hello, yes.
Yeah, so can you see I'm screen sharing? So
Yep.
do you want to talk over the screen share? And just tell me when you want me to move the slide?
Oh, okay, sorry, I think I'm running it in two places now. Yes, yes. So this is my virtual visit and tour of Bexhill and Bexhill Museum. So what we're looking at here is the seafront in 1911. And this is really what everybody always used to come down for. It was the seaside holiday experience. But in Bexhill, it was the smart holiday experience, because we weren't really competing with the neighboring towns. The business plan was essentially to take on the south of France directly. So our competitors, as we saw them at the turn of the turn of the 19th century, was the Côte d'Azur. So we were taking on Nice directly. So if we move on to a slightly more modern Bexhill with the next slide, we can see the town's most famous landmark. This is the 1935 Delaware Pavilion with the 1911 colonnade on the seafront. The Delaware Pavilion was constructed with the leadership of the 9th Earl Delaware, and it was really a regeneration project for the town and for the resort. It created work for people in Bexhill, but it also rejuvenated the tourist economy. So this is Frank Sherwin's 1947 poster. So if we move on to a slightly more modern view of Bexhill, we're looking at the modern West Parade as opposed to the more Victorian East Parade. So this is the part of the seafront that we're located on, and you might just be able to see the Delaware and Colonnade in the distance. And if we move on to the next slide, we'll move further down West Parade. It's a lovely summer's day, as it always is all year round in Bexhill. And the 1904 clock tower that you just might be able to make out there marks Park Avenue. So that's where the museum is located, literally a stone's throw from the seafront. So if you move a little bit further down the promenade, although we're moving away from the museum here, so don't go too far, we reach the famous Sovereign Light Cafe, which was made very famous by a certain song by the popular band Keane. But this is a place you can come and get some refreshments before you visit the museum. But we'll go back to the museum now. We'll go down Park Avenue to the next slide. And here we are, so the junction of Park Avenue and Edgerton Road. So you can see the original 1903 Edwardian Park Shelter Hall building and our 2008 extension. So this is the entrance. But before we go in, we'll have a quick look around the back because it's rather bigger than it looks. So this is Edgerton Park. So we're seeing the back of the museum. So this is where the motor gallery and costume gallery are located. But we'll go back to the front now and we'll actually go in. So this is our shop where you can purchase gifts and also have some refreshments either before or after you visited the museum. And you may just be able to make out our Spike Milligan exhibition, looking at Spike's time in Bexhill during the Second World War and subsequent D-Battery reunions at the Delaware Pavilion. And watching over us as we go through into the museum proper is our founder, Kate Marsden, who in 1891 went on a mission to Siberia to try and find a cure for leprosy. A very dynamic lady, one of the first female members of the Royal Geographical Society. So we'll go through the archway into the Henry Sargent Gallery. So scaring visitors and small children ever since 1920 is our giant Japanese crab. This was presented to us when we reopened after the First World War and has been up on the wall ever since. So if you can turn your eyes away from the giant crab, we'll have a look at the other side of the gallery and some of our exhibits. If we have the next slide, please. This is the Henry Sargent Gallery. So this is named after our first curator, Henry Sargent, who was curator from 1920 until he died in 1983. And in front of us is the original architect's model of the Delaware Pavilion. So if you move on to the next slide, we'll have a closer look. We were recently doing some filming with BBC Two for a forthcoming television program, The Art That Made Us, focusing on the building. This model is exceptionally rare. When we had our redevelopment, this was on loan to the V&A. It was a centerpiece for their architecture gallery. This is almost unique. It's an original modernist style building, modernist style architect's model. So this is 1934. It's a year older than the actual building and shows the full scope of the project, including a proposed seafront that was never delivered. So if we move on. This is Annie Lady Brassey. This was the 9th Earl Delaware's grandmother. She traveled all around the world in the 1870s and 1880s on a steam yacht, the Sunbeam, having all sorts of adventures, collecting all sorts of interesting things to bring back and found her museums. And some of those collections ended up here at Bexhill, and some of those collections went into her London museum that was later moved to Hastings Museum. So a very, very important lady in the history of the town. So moving on, we'll look at some of our very oldest residents. The rock under our feet is about 140 million years old, and our visitors back then were dinosaurs. They left their fossilized bones, teeth, and footprints in our bedrock, and we have a good selection of them on display. So the history of the town is incredibly ancient. We used to have dinosaurs coming down for the holidays even then. So we'll move forward in time, but still quite a long time in the past, sort of 3.5 to 4,000 years ago. We have a substantial collection of Egyptology. This was collected by Dr. Amsden, who was working with the famous Sir William Flinders Petrie. And when the museum was being founded in 1914, well, that's when the First World War was started. And our founder, Kate Marsden, went round and twisted Dr. Amsden's arm and persuaded him to give us his collection from Egypt. So that's how we formed the Egyptology collection, which is really the centerpiece for our school learning project. We have lots and lots of school groups coming down to study ancient Egypt here. So we'll move forward in time again. This is the other end of the Henry Sargent Gallery, looking back towards the entrance. You should be able to see the giant crab up on the wall. And to our left are the natural history displays. It is a seaside museum. So as you might expect, we have shells, we have crabs, we have starfish, seabirds. On the right, you may be able to see some green doors. That is the original entrance to the building, and we'll have a quick look inside there now. It's no longer the entrance. We've converted this into our Victorian collector's study. So this is a 19th century antiquarian doing what 19th century antiquarians like to do, which was cataloguing lots of things. This is some of the Brassey collection in here. We've got some of Annie Lady Brassey's birds. So this is how we used to do things. If we move on to the next slide, everybody else can have a go. We have the next slide, please. This is the access center. So this is the modern version of what the antiquarian was doing. People who want to take their research a little bit further can look at the maps, documents, photographs, and books and previous exhibitions that we put into the access center. People can do their own research, family history research, find out a little bit more about the area that they are visiting. So if we move on, please. Linking the old building to the new structure, this is the corridor where the lift is located. So this brings you downstairs. We have just had a new display case fitted. So this is a display of Victorian costume. And as we go into May, we'll be switching to our main exhibition for the year, which is celebrating Bexhill's 1250th anniversary, because the first written record of Bexhill was in the King Offa Charter of 772. So we have been here for quite a long time. On the other side of the wall, we have our Operation Sea Lion exhibition, looking at another invasion, not Saxons, not Normans. This was Germans attempting to invade in the late summer of 1940. And fortunately, that didn't happen. So if we move through the corridor to the bridge, there is a fine view out. Some interesting weather here. So even if it is a rainy day, which doesn't often happen, at least you're undercover in the museum. And if we look to the other side, you should be able to see the steps going down to the lower galleries. And there is the photograph of the first entertainment pavilion, the Kurzol from 1896, and our kimono exhibition. We won't go downstairs straight away. We'll go through now into the costume gallery. There used to be two museums in Bexhill. In 1972, the Bexhill Museum of Costume and Social History was founded. We've now amalgamated the two sites into a single building. So this is the current temporary costume exhibition, Common Threads, looking at national dress, exploring costumes from all around the world. If you move to the next slide, we'll have a quick tour around the gallery with the introduction explaining what clothes do, why we wear them, what they're made out of, how textiles are produced. And if we move on a little bit more, the back of the gallery has some thematic displays looking at subjects such as the beach and holidays in the past. And the long wall is a chronological display running from about 1790 up to the present day. And if you've got very, very sharp eyes, you might be able to see a little bit of social history on the ground, including a replica of John Logie Baird's televisor, because John Logie Baird invented the television, and in 1947 he died in Bexhill, which was his last home. So we have a last look at the display case on that side of the gallery, and this brings us bang up to date into the 2000s. So although we have a lot of very old costume, we think it's important to have more recent things on display so people can recognize things from their childhood and early life as well. We have temporary exhibitions in this gallery. We'll have a look at one here. So if we move on to the next slide. This is last year's temporary exhibition that we've been able to extend into this season. This is an exhibition on Eddie Izzard's film 6 Minutes to Midnight. Eddie is the museum's patron and she does a huge amount to support us. And the film, which was based on some research into an extraordinary story of a Nazi finishing school in Bexhill in the years leading up to the war, it inspired Eddie to write the film, and we were able to borrow some of the costumes from the film and the mood board put together by the costume designer Lucinda Wright, and some of the film photographs from Amanda Searle. So it's a very interesting exhibition that we've been able to continue. Now we will have a look downstairs, and that brings us to the Motor and Transport Gallery. As already has been mentioned, Bexhill hosted Britain's first motor race on the 19th of May 1902 under the auspices of the 9th Earl's father, the 8th Earl Delaware. So we have a replica in the background of the steam car that won that race in 1902, Leon Serpillet's Easter egg. In the middle, the shiny silver car is a Mark III 1958 Elva sports racing car, a mark of racing car that was actually produced in Bexhill. And closest to us is the white racing car. This is the Volta, which was an electrically powered racing car made by local students that in 1993 broke the world land speed record for electrically powered vehicles of its weight class. We'll move on to look at one of the displays in a little bit more detail. Oh, back one, please. This is the Elva display. So Frank Nichols founded the Elva racing car business in 1955. So from the mid-50s to the mid-60s, the cars were produced first in Bexhill and later on in Hastings. We have a Mark III. The Mark VI is quite famous because if you're familiar with the Elvis Presley film Viva Las Vegas, Elvis is actually racing a blue Mark VI Elva racing car. So moving away from cars, we're going to look at some trains now. And we have a very important model railway on display. This is the Izzard family railway. This is the model railway that Harold John Izzard constructed for his children. So this was Eddie Izzard's childhood playset that was very kindly donated to the museum. It shows Sidley, which was a suburb of Bexhill in the late 1950s going on to the 1960s. This proved to be so popular that we upgraded it, if we move on to the next slide, to an even bigger model railway. This has been on television a few times. This is our 1940 Bexhill winter wartime model railway, showing the town during the very snowy winter of 1940, when John Izzard was still a very small boy. He came back for that Christmas after having been evacuated to visit his family in Sidley. So it shows the town how it would have appeared then. It acts as an interactive town model. Most of the key features are shown, but it is a fully operational model railway. So we'll move on to the last slide. Finishing up where we started, this is Bexhill Museum, but in miniature. So this is how we appear in the 1940 winter wartime model railway. We won't have a trip round the miniature version of the inside of this, but I hope that gives you a good introduction to what you can enjoy when you visit Bexhill, and we hope that you will visit Bexhill Museum as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Julian. That was great. Emma, shall we pop back to you?
Hello. Yeah, I'm hoping that I've got a more stable connection now.
Well, it sounds better.
Okay. I will kick off where I left off, if that's okay.
Perfect.
In taxonomic planting. So I've gone through the people that have been part of Bedgebury's history, and now a bit of the natural changes to history, the history of the site. So I was talking about the taxonomic planting and how similar trees are planted together, but nature had its own ideas about taxonomic planting. So if I move to the next slide, you'll see the Great Storm happened in 1987, and Bedgebury lost a quarter of the standing trees in the collection in that one event. So it had a large impact on Bedgebury as the national pinetum and the forest. And it did provide some benefits to us in terms of giving more room for rare endangered species to be planted. We also built a new visitor centre in part of the site that was damaged. So that was in 2005. And our visitor numbers went up considerably. And I'll show you some more visitor centre in a bit, because really Bedgebury is all about the trees, and we're all about conifers. So anybody that comes to visit us, despite all the changes, should be able to get a good view of the trees. We're open every day except Christmas Day, so barring high winds and very severe snow, you will be able to see the trees. So what are conifers? They're the cone-bearing, generally evergreen, needle-like leaved trees. And just as Julian said, going back millions of years, you can actually see trees living in our collection today that have existed 300 million years into the past. So if you look at our monkey puzzles in the car park, as you come in and all throughout Bedgebury, they are like living dinosaurs. They were there when the dinosaurs were there. So conifers also exist on every continent except Antarctica, and they don't have a great press, although they do have many uses. So we are really pleased to have all sorts of different varieties of conifers, and these are some of the uses of them. And they also have an ecological role to play. 40% of the world's forests are coniferous, and they store carbon. They regulate the Earth's climate, and they improve air quality. So trees are a great space to spend some time in. Conifers also support a range of wildlife. Don't worry, you won't see any bears when you come to visit Bedgebury, but you may well see fungi. They are abundant, especially in our habitats at Bedgebury. You'll also see trees from around the world, so it's like stepping into other continents. We have the oldest we have a tree that is the same species as the oldest, the tallest and the biggest trees around the world. And those dawn redwoods that I mentioned earlier from Marshall's Lakes are like a living fossil. They were considered extinct until 1946, when you can see this specimen here was found in China as a living fossil. So we also at Bedgebury contribute to a lot of tree conservation work, because a third of conifer species are close to extinction in the wild, and they suffer from habitat destruction. So Bedgebury's collection, a third of it is grown from wild collected seed, and it's really important to do that to maintain tree species and to invest in the future. So how Bedgebury is helping with habitat destruction and tree conservation is contributing to the global strategy for plant conservation, working in partnership with lots of other botanic collections. As I mentioned earlier about the Kew relationship, we still maintain good links with them, and we grow trees, which is a bit of an insurance policy. So we're more than just a pretty park. We also make sure that we maintain meticulous records of the trees, but some of our records are actually pretty beautiful, and we put on exhibitions of these artworks from the Bedgebury Pinetum Florilegium Society, who are a group of very enthusiastic volunteers who make these beautiful illustrations. So our team also contribute to seed collecting, plant hunting trips across the globe, and they travel around the world, and they do still climb trees to collect seed. At Bedgebury, you can climb trees if you go and book a Go Ape experience in the forest. So you can still do the sort of things that we do out on those trips. The seed is and the plant material is brought back to Bedgebury, and in our nursery, which is visitable on special talks and group walks. We have many successes that we have had over the years in tree conservation, and these are a couple of examples: the Vietnamese golden cypress and the Melange cedar project more recently. But what's really important to us is that we continue to share that knowledge and information, not just with the plant networks, but with also the people that visit. So we're trying to grow a generation of future foresters, and we'd love people to bring groups so that we can continue to do that. And you can see in the bottom left-hand corner here of this slide, the atrium space in our visitor centre, which has moved on a spot from the 2005 slide of it just being built. And you can see we interpret the collection here. We also put on trails, and these change throughout the season so that people can go on a walk and explore. And as I mentioned about exhibitions, you can see a board here with a more photographic style exhibition that we've had in the past. There's also a range of events that we put on over the year. Trees, whether you want to see them every day and have a walk with a trail leaflet or go on a group guided walk, they can be accessed any day and in many different ways. So we have special larger events as well, which I'll mention later, and everyday activities that we organise around running, cycling, orienteering, and we have more gentle mindfulness and yoga activities as well. Sorry, I've gone through a couple of slides. As I mentioned about every day, there are wildlife encounters which come from the habitats that we have in the National Pinetum. We sometimes run special BioBits events, which you can see the small mammals group here enjoying an organised encounter with a dormouse, a mouse bear. But we also have a range of birds and dragonflies I've just added here due to the lakes and streams network that we have at Bedgebury. And if you come any day of the year, you can encounter wildlife throughout the seasons. We have birds that are winter roosting because of our mature conifers, but also the dragonflies there are from the summer months when the lakes produce just clouds of insects and crickets in the long grasses that we maintain. So further out into the forest, there's the possibility to get more active. You can see horse riding here. People bring dogs. Dogs are very welcome in the forest. And there's also mountain bike cycling as well. We also offer a range of bike hire through a bike hire partner that we have at Bedgebury. And you can book ahead for bike hire and also for their events. They put on special introductions to cycling as well. We have a Saturday park run as well at Bedgebury in the forest. So there's all sorts of different ways that you can bring groups to see and experience the trees. The other events and activities, as I mentioned, Christmas at Bedgebury is our After Dark illuminated trail each winter, which is a special event for us and celebrates the trees after hours. You can also pick up activity packs for the Superworm Trail for this year. We put on different trails each year. So this one is Calling All Forest Superheroes, and it's inspired by the Superworm books of Julia Donaldson. But we also every day have the Gruffalo sculptures around the Pinetum, and you can see some trails involve apps for your phones that the groups could use to enjoy the collection and get out and take some pictures and things. So the other picture is of an outdoor theatre event, and that's all published on forestryengland.uk/Bedgebury if you want to find out more and plan ahead. So that's the events and activities, and then everyday activities also include a natural play trail for families and accessible routes throughout the Pinetum and the forest. And we have a tramper vehicle which can be booked in advance as well, to explore a bit wider. And there's the cafe and lots of interpretation around Bedgebury as well for groups to explore. So even if you don't stop by at Bedgebury, you can get involved with forestry by buying sustainable timber and products, or visiting one of our other Forestry England forests. And there are also downloadable resources to engage with trees and embrace trees on our website that I just mentioned. So for us at Bedgebury, trees are the key, and we hope to welcome any groups that would like to come and explore. So that was my presentation. And I'm not sure who I'm supposed to pass on to now, because it was Julian.
No problem. Thank you, Emma. We'll be handing over to Lindsay now.
Just making sure, see if you can all see this okay.
Yeah.
Is it full screen yet?
Not yet.
I did this earlier, it didn't want to do full screen. Let's try. That working yet?
Not full screen.
Is that working?
Oh, yeah. Yes, it is now.
Hooray.
Yeah.
Okay, so hello, I'm Lindsay. I'm the property manager at Mitchell Priory House and Gardens. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of a tour around the house and 7 acres of grounds within the island. So here we are. This is Mitchell Priory. We are 20 minutes from Eastbourne. We're about an hour from Gatwick, and depending on the traffic, 1.5 to 2 hours from central London. As Jane mentioned earlier as well, we are about an hour from Dover too, so we've got good connections, and we're just nestled down nicely in the Sussex countryside. So the history of the site: Mitchell Priory was founded 800 years ago. In 1229, it became an Augustinian priory. We've had some very famous owners. So after the dissolution of the monasteries, our owner became Henry VIII. And he held ownership of the priory until his divorce from Anne of Cleves, when it was passed over to her. Moving forward a few years, during World War II, the priory housed evacuees for 8 months. And then once they had left, the military requisitioned the priory until the end of the war in 1945. And now the priory is owned and maintained by the Sussex Archaeological Society. So the first thing you'll see when you come onto site is our 14th century gatehouse. Now this was built as a defence along with the moat. So we're surrounded by England's longest medieval water-filled moat. So these were defences because the prior at the time was a tax collector for the county. So you can imagine there was quite a bit of money held on site. So that was why the gatehouse was built, and it's a very impressive structure. So the house itself, the house is an impressive building which has been extended and changed throughout its history, with extensive renovations taking place in the 1920s. So inside the house is set to reflect the most important periods of the site's history. So we tend to focus on the medieval period, the Tudor period, and the World War II period. So you can see here you've got our medieval prior's chamber and our Tudor kitchen. So there are interactive areas in the house. You can try your hand at spice grinding in our Victorian scullery, and you can have a go at dressing up as well. So as you can see here in our World War II gallery, there are plenty of photo opportunities to create some lovely memories from your visit to the Priory. So we have 7 acres inside the island. So obviously we're surrounded by a moat, so we are on an island. You can see here on the left-hand side, in March every year, we have around 80,000 daffodils flowering around the grounds. and that's become a really important event in our calendar. We do get a lot of attendance around that time of year, so it's a beautiful time to visit with all that spring colour everywhere. And within those 7 acres of the gardens, we have the cloister garden, we have the physic garden, which is an example of a monastic medieval garden. And we also have a kitchen garden and an orchard, and the produce grown in the kitchen garden and the orchard are used in a cafe. So we have a plot to plate scheme. So everything we grow on site is used in the cafe for our visitors to sample. So on the east lawn, on the picture on the left here, sorry, you can see the church footprint. So as I mentioned, during the dissolution of the monasteries, the church was knocked down and completely destroyed, along with partial parts of the house as well. So you will notice as you go around the site, there are lots of different foundations marked out in pebbles, which does actually give the visitor a bit of an idea of how big the site actually used to be and how many buildings there were on the site as well. So there's lots of space for families to explore when they visit the priory. We do have a playground as well across the other side of the moat, and we've also got a woodland walk and a moat walk as well. And on the moat walk you can see our beehives. So in the top right corner here you can see a picture from one of our most recent events. We do try and hold events at least once a month, big events, and we tried a new one last week. It was the wassail. So we decided to hold a ceremony to wake our apple trees in the orchard from their slumber, and it was a very bonfire associated event, and it was really, really popular, so that was nice for a new event. So we also have our water mill, and as I've already mentioned, you can see at the bottom of the screen here that we are surrounded by England's longest medieval water-filled moat. And at the top of the screen, you can see that that moat is inhabited by our lovely ducks, probably some of the most friendly ducks you will ever meet, especially if you have cake. So the facilities on the site, so we have a cafe, as I've mentioned, we do sell our homemade cakes, and we also sell local produce. So we've got lemonade from Brighton, we've got some different juices from just down the road in Arlington. We have all sorts of different things in there. So the cafe is really, really popular, and you can get light lunches and snacks in there. We do have our Dovecot gift shop, which I've already mentioned as well. We do sell very relevant items in there to the property and the eras of history. We also sell locally sourced produce and also our honey from our beehives. You can purchase that in the gift shop too. The site is fully accessible. So where we do have a few small steps, there are ramps, and the site is actually very flat. So it's quite easy to get about, and we do have wheelchairs and mobility scooters that you can use as well, and your group members can also have access to those. We have fully accessible toilets, and the site is dog friendly in the grounds. We don't allow dogs in the buildings, but they can go anywhere in the grounds other than the playground. We do also have an iPad in the house that has 3D scans of all the buildings. So if there's anyone with mobility issues that prevents them from going upstairs, you have got that to utilise as well with the help of our house stewards. And then at the side of this picture here, you can see our Elizabethan barn. So that is used to for weddings, for large events, for parties, for dinner parties, things like that, and it can be hired out privately. If you do have large groups, they can also eat in there as well. It does have a capacity of 130 people. So on this slide here, you can see the interior of the barn there. That's a wedding. So looks a bit different to a normal day when education groups and bits are using it. So yeah, that is available for rent. And as I say, you can pre-book meals in our cafe for smaller groups, or if you want to pre-book meals for larger groups, they can be accommodated in the barn there. So our group rate is applicable for 10 or more people paying in one transaction. We do have free parking on site for cars and coaches. The coach drivers do get free entrance when they bring the groups along, and they also get a cafe voucher for something to eat and a drink as well while they're here. We can offer house and garden tours. They do need to be pre-booked, but we can offer house and garden tours for your groups. And also we can offer admission to special events. So we do get a lot of groups coming along to our Christmas market and our Sussex Weald craft fair. We have car shows, we have all sorts going on. So we have a good calendar of events for the year. So your groups can get admission to those as well. So last but not least, these are the contact details. So my email address is there. If you have any questions or queries or would like to book, we'd love to have you. The phone number's there, and also the website address. We do also have a Facebook page, Instagram page, all the usual social media. And that's it. That's a quick whistle-stop tour around Mitchell and Priory. Hope you've enjoyed it, and thank you for listening.
Lindsay, that's great. Thank you ever so much. Really, really interesting. Lots to take in. We're going to go and pass on to Kate now from Pashley Manor.
Hiya, I'm just going to click on to share the screen. Right, so can everybody see the picture? Hope so, yeah. So, lovely. I'm from Pashley Manor Gardens. I'm just going to start you with that picture because it's one of my favourite ones. Pashley's a privately owned 11-acre garden, and it's on the border of Sussex and Kent. We're about 20 minutes north of Hastings, so we're right on the top of 1066 country. And we're just off the A21, so nice and easy to find. We get a lot of groups coming across from Sussex, Kent and Essex, and we get some groups from further afield who are staying in Eastbourne coming across to us for day trips as well. We open at the start of April and we close at the end of September. So I thought, since we're garden, I'll just talk you through the garden seasons quickly. I know we're running over slightly on this presentation, so I'll do it fairly quickly. So first of all, in spring, we start with daffodils and magnolia and all sorts of lovely things like that. The highlight of our spring season is our tulip festival. So you can see lots of the tulips in this picture. We plant 48,000 tulips at the gardens in sort of every colour that you can imagine, in over 100 different varieties. So there's all sorts of different ones on there. This year is the 28th year that we've run the event, but it's only the 27th festival because in 2020, obviously we planted all the tulips, but nobody could come and see them. So that was a bit sad. More tulips around the swimming pool there. Lots of tulips in the big sweeping herbaceous borders. In this little area of the garden alone, there's 10,000 different tulips. And this is just a little look inside the marquee during our Tulip Festival, which runs from the 20th of April to the 4th of May. We've got a marquee as well with experts from Blom's Bulbs in there, and people who come and visit us use the gardens like a living catalogue to have a look at all the tulips, and they place orders with Blom's for delivery in the autumn. This is a picture of our garden team planting the tulips. You can see there our head gardener Greg, and behind him a bit further down you've got our assistant head gardener Fiona. They're both fairly new to our team. This is their third ever Tulip Festival, and we like to say that the first one in 2020 was like a practice run for them because nobody ever saw it. But if you go on our Facebook page, you can link to our website. You don't have to be a member of Facebook yourself. You can go and have a look at the Facebook page, even if you're signed in as a Facebook user or not. And then you can see there's a nice video of the tulips in 2020. And then last year I took some more videos of the tulips and popped them on there as well. So if you want to get a sneak preview of the garden's video style, have a look on the Facebook page there. And I would say that Greg and Fiona and the whole team here are really, really hoping to welcome some people this year to see the tulips because we've planted them all again, ready for a good display. After tulips, or sometimes during the tulips, depending on the weather, we've got this magnificent wisteria on the back of the house. We also have a bluebell walk in the spring, again, sometimes during the Tulip Festival, sometimes just after, that depends on the weather again. And then after the tulips, we go into azaleas and rhododendrons, giving lots of splashes of colour. And then as we come into summer, really looking at the roses taking centre stage. We have an event based around the roses as well, the Special Rose Week, and that is running in the middle of June this year. I'm just going to have to look at the dates for that because I haven't memorised them yet. 17th to the 25th of June for those ones. We've got over 100 varieties of rose in the garden. This is my favourite bit of shrub roses. This is the rose walk, and you can see either side we've got Irene Watts roses, and they're just a perfect height to fit with these box hedges here. But they're also absolutely fabulously scented, and they're absolutely, as you can see, massively abundant flowers. In the rose garden itself, again, we've got the box hedges. We did have a few problems with the box last year, but we won't go into that now. Absolutely overflowing with old-fashioned roses in the rose garden, but there's roses all around the gardens, not just in the rose garden, some by the greenhouse there. During the Rose Week, we have a big area where we sell potted roses as well, and we use Peter Beals, who've won the Chelsea Gold Medal 26 times, so we sell their roses during our Rose Week. And we have somebody in here again giving advice on roses for your garden if that's of interest to you. I would say some coach drivers don't like you to take the roses on the coaches, so if you're coming as a group, maybe check that first. I just popped this in because that's one of my favourite climbing roses. The one to the left of the picture there, the white one, the City of York by the swimming pool, that flowers all through June, July, and then comes back again in September, and it's just absolutely gorgeous. And the rose we probably get asked about most is this is the front of the house here. And this is Rosa Gloire de Dijon, which is a highly scented tea rose. This is actually 4 different plants across the front of the house there. And that comes out early June and again, flowers all the way through, looking amazing. After roses, or not after them really, all the time through the season, we've got the kitchen garden. So this is the kitchen garden in spring when there's not so much produce as you can see, but as you can see, we managed to get those tulips in absolutely everywhere. So there's tulips even in the kitchen garden. And then it's at its most abundant in the middle of summer onwards. So we have a kitchen garden week from the 12th to the 17th of July. That's it, the kitchen garden in early summer. And that's one of the owners of Pashley Manor Gardens. That's Mr. Selleck, harvesting some courgettes and beetroots in the kitchen garden there. We get lots and lots of produce out the kitchen garden. You can see salads and beans, herbs, edible flowers there. Later in the season, courgettes, tomatoes, soft fruits, and we use it all in the cafe. So we serve salads and light lunches, homemade quiches and homemade specials each day. Lots of lovely desserts. That's a summer pudding, which is always particularly lovely when we get the red currants and raspberries out of the garden. Later on in summer, we've got lots of lilies. And it's probably a good time to mention the sculpture, because there's a massive sculpture sticking out in that picture there. We have about 100 sculptures around the garden all season. So all the way from April to September, there's an exhibition of sculpture through the gardens for people to enjoy. The summer borders, you can see in April for the tulips, they're all quite low. In summer, they all come up. So there's lots of agapanthus in this one. That's the hot borders in late July, the lilies again in the hot borders and all the different summer bedding. After we take all the tulips out in April, we put in all the summer bedding and all the dahlias. So late in summer is our dahlia time. We have another special event based around the dahlias, which we call Dahlia Days, from the 7th to the 17th of September. Our dahlias come out a little bit later than other people's because we plant them a bit later, because we get all of those late flowering tulips out first before we put them in, although obviously we've already potted them up. But as you can see, they're absolutely abundant in all different colours through the gardens. Each area of the garden is colour themed. So you've got pinks along the back terrace there, hot colours in the herbaceous borders, purples along the back terrace as well at the other end. That's the hot borders there with some hot colours in. And then what we do, again, we have a marquee, and we have, which you can't see in the gardens, we've got a field out the side, which we grow lots of dahlias in, which we use to produce cut dahlias to fill this marquee. And again, we have experts from Blondes Bulbs, and you can place orders if you want to. This is a little map of the gardens. It's a good time just to go through what we offer groups. So the coach park is at the top left there. So it's a separate area of hard standing parking. Groups walk along the top and then come down the main drive, and they get a lovely view of the main house there. The grade 1 listed house isn't open to the public. It's still a family home. So I'm sorry, but you can't go in there. But I would say that having the owners on site really keeps us up to scratch, because they're really hands-on in the gardens, and they really sort of overseeing what we're doing, coming up with new ideas, working with the garden team. It's been lovely to have Greg and Fiona and Whitney, who's our kitchen gardener as well, and the whole garden team, because they've got so many great ideas and they all work on them together to bring them all to fruition. There's also an interesting history to the estate. This is a sculpture of Anne Boleyn on the original island, which is moated, nothing like the moat at Michelham, much, much smaller. But this is a moated island with the sculpture of Anne Boleyn on, and there's a link to the history. The original house was owned by the Boleyn family. If groups are interested in the history, we offer an introductory talk for groups, which you can pre-book. That's about 15 to 20 minutes long. That's quite nice for you to have on arrival to introduce your group to the gardens. Or if you're really, really interested in gardens, we offer a full tour, which is usually with the head gardener, which is 60 to 90 minutes. This brings us on to questions that groups ask us the most. So there's a picture of it raining, the garden in the rain there, because we get asked a lot, is there anything indoors here? I'm afraid there isn't. We're an outdoor attraction. We have got the cafe and the gift shop, but the majority of the attraction is outdoors. I would say that when it's raining, if you are unlucky and it rains when you come, it really does, the dull days really make the colours pop in the garden flower beds, so that's really nice. But also as well, we're much quieter with other visitors, so it's almost like a private tour of the gardens if you're a group booked on a rainy day, so that can be quite nice as well, if we're looking on the bright side. The cafe operates buffet style, so it's set up so it can serve lots and lots of people. That's some of our new cafe furniture on the terrace there. That's a picture of the old furniture looking down the terrace. You can see we've got plenty of room for groups. The cafe seats 70 indoors and over 100 people outdoors. And of course, yes, we do serve cream teas. But we get asked that a lot. That's a little shot of our gift shop, which is where you come into the gardens and where the team welcome you. And there's a little plant sales area on your way out again as well. And I'm just going to finish with that photo because it is one of my favourite pictures, and because this is a lovely planting of 3 tulips mixed together that we did in 2020 that nobody got to see again. And I'll just tell you that we do offer group rates for groups of 15 or more when they're pre-booked. The driver gets in free and we give you a refreshment voucher. And all the information is on our website, the group booking information, but of course we're in the office on weekdays and we'd be delighted to talk to you. We'll answer questions at the end of this if anybody wants to ask questions, and we'll also be at excursions on the 19th of March sharing the stand with lovely Jane from 1066. So I'll pass over to you now and stop screen sharing and pass you over to Rebecca at the British Tea Museum in Hastings.
Wonderful, thank you ever so much, Rebecca. I am going to spotlight you, and Rebecca is going to give us a unique insight into the British Tea Museum. Oh, bear with me if I can find Rebecca.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yeah, you're going to need to stop sharing screen, Rebecca.
Yep. Okie dokie.
There we go, we can see you. There we go.
Oh, fantastic. So welcome everyone to the British Tea Museum, and thank you so much for this opportunity to present. A little bit about myself first, if I may. I set up my company Tea and Deportment in 2016. I'd worked as a TEFL teacher, teaching English as a foreign language 33 years ago in Hastings, and I was constantly asked about British tea customs and manners. It gave me the idea to set up Tea and Deportment, which was a 90-minute activity for students who would learn about British tea etiquette. And I always dreamed of one day actually establishing a tea museum whereby we could not only enjoy learning about tea itself, but also celebrating our unique customs and manners, which seem to be such a popular export. In fact, I was very surprised that there hadn't actually been a national museum dedicated to English customs and manners. So when our customers come to the tea museum, the first thing they'll notice is the tea tasting station. I had to really set it up so it was incredibly user-friendly for customers. I'm very, very surprised at how very little our lovely British people know about real English tea leaves. So it's been an absolute pleasure to share with our public the types of tea we have, all coming from the Camellia sinensis, and then how to actually taste tea. People are terribly intimidated by the concept of real leaf teas, and it's really rather easy and lots of fun. So I hope when you do visit, you're able to pick up on that. The tea etiquette wall is based on about 15 years of people asking me, how on earth do we hold the teacup handle? How do we prepare the tea itself? What is the cake stand etiquette? And which tradition exactly am I attending? Is it high tea, low tea, cream tea? So it's my delight, of course, to share with our customers how exactly we prepare it. Now, no tea museum is complete without a Victorian carriage. I purchased this when I opened the museum with the full intent of dressing up my customers, popping them on top of the carriage, giving them some tea and a little bit of Prosecco. And in my presentation, you're going to enjoy seeing some of our customers all dressed up, a little bit squiffy, and having lots and lots of fun. Moving along to our actual teas, I'm thrilled to say that I've partnered with Gray's Tea, descendant of Earl Grey, to produce the Tea Museum's 22 real leaf teas. All of the teas we offer, including a very interesting Earl Grey green tea, are really aimed at the customer.
Oh, apologies. We seem to have lost Rebecca. Are you there, Rebecca? No, unfortunately, we have lost Rebecca completely. I will just give a minute to see if she is able to return. I'm going to refer back to Jane Ellis just to see if there's any information and contact details that we need to impart for Rebecca should she not be able to.
I think Rebecca's presentation is in the folder, one of her presentations. It's the one marked 1066, I think. It's what she said at the beginning.
Right, okay. Bear with me. Here we go. I'm hoping you can all see that. Now, I won't be so presumptuous to try and talk you through all the information. I am hoping that we have Rebecca's contact details at the end. And what we will do, obviously, is make all this information available for you. And
Fran, what I can do is I can just read from our website at the moment. Basically, it's celebrating the custom at the British Tea Museum. What Rebecca offers is, apart from the boards and the information that is static there, she also offers for groups a 90-minute tea time masterclass, which is, I have to say, it's really good fun. I have seen how she does this with students, and it's a great group visit to do. The experience includes 2 pots of real leaf tea, 6 tea tastings, an introduction to the social history of tea, a masterclass on British tea time etiquette, which she was kind of halfway through there. She does it in a very fun sort of way. It's not very serious, and she has audience participation as well. A tutorial on how to prepare the perfect cup of tea, and then there are also table games and a conversation pot, which I think involves pulling things out of a pot, and you have to talk on that subject. And then, as she showed you there, a Victorian carriage and a British dress-up box. She says a tea dance as well, but I've never experienced that bit myself, I have to say. But she says the British Tea Museum is also available to hire as a venue for your special occasion with seating. It can cope with a group of up to 75 people. So obviously that's interesting to know as well. You can also go along there just for afternoon tea, and the cakes are brilliant. I can recommend those.
Excellent. Thank you, Jane, and thank you for thinking on your feet there completely.
You're welcome.
Oh, hang on, I can see Rebecca has been able to rejoin us. Perhaps she might be able to do that. But what I would say is, yeah, fantastic, a real insight into everything 1066 today, and I can't recommend it enough. Certainly slightly unexplored area for groups, I would say, so encourage you all to get booking and get your groups visits for the coming year, and go and explore all these different areas. Absolutely fantastic to see those lovely pictures in the sun as well, inspiring us all, I think. And certainly at the end there, the afternoon tea and cakes and tea making, which I think is all propelling us forward for dinner time, I think. So with that in mind, it's just to say thank you all for joining us today. Appreciate your time once again for exploring with us. Hope to see you tomorrow. We start tomorrow's fam trips at 10:30 in Portsmouth, and then move on to Richmond at 3 o'clock. And importantly, more than anything, I'm sure everybody at Hastings looks forward to actually seeing you at the physical event at Twickenham Excursions on the 19th of March. There's so much more to see and hear, and yeah, we'll make this available. We'll make sure Rebecca's details are also available so you can contact her direct. And I wish you all a very good evening.
Thank you, Fran.